So I'm joined today, never quite sure where Kevin Roberts is, but I'm sure he'll tell us, by my great friend and mentor, Kevin Roberts, otherwise known as KR to the world at large. And thank you very much, KR, for coming on. I'm actually very proud to have you on.
Pleasure, Moffett. I can't wait to see how this unfolds. I think we've known each other for I don't know how long now, 30 years plus, and you have never been short of enthusiasm, energy, innovation. So let's hope you don't let me down today.
No, I won't, because a lot of it has come from yourself. I'm not going to, and I'm not a pissing in the pocket type person, but at the end of the day, if ever I've wanted to get some advice, I will call you. And I know that the call won't last for anything more than around about 10 minutes because you're a very busy guy. But the interesting thing for me is that you're able to condense into 10 minutes an awful lot of wisdom and, and thinking. And that's really weird when you consider your background as a Lancashire man.
That was a very good pass the ball there, Moffo, in terms of moving the pressure. I was talking to Dan Carter a little while ago as we're going through his personal purpose, life after rugby. And he told me what he really believed was in this world, core belief for him was you got to walk towards pressure, not run towards it because you're going to get there too soon, not run away from it because then it turns into stress and you fail. So the thing is, it's all about cadence, slow, slow, fast, fast. Walk towards pressure. So I think that's what you're enticing me to do. So walking towards pressure, I am. I went to a school in Lancaster that was a great rugby school, right? We were just talking off camera about a great mate of both of us, Brian Ashton. I followed him at school. He went on to coach Bath in their glory days. He coached down in Italy at Benetton, and then he was at Ireland and England, and Brian has stayed now. He's coaching coaches now in soccer, in rugby, in all kinds of in all kinds of stuff. And he was my first hero really, because I was like an 11-year-old. I'd only ever played soccer and cricket at primary school. Went into this great rugby school. At half time in my first game, I'd never seen a game of rugby, never played it. The guy made me captain. I think because I was the noisiest.
That's an unusual concept.
Yeah, you might realize I've matured since then and become much quieter. I understand your surprise at that. And he put me as a number 7, okay? And after playing a full game of that, I realized this was a nonsensical position to play. So I told him that I'd love to be captain, but I was now, as of today, I was a number 10. Because I'd seen this game now and I understood this. The 7 kept getting the living daylights kicked out of him and spent most of his time knee deep or face deep in Lancashire mud. Whereas the 10 was all on his own in the middle of the field with what looked like acres of space and blue sky and everyone watching him. And I think I was born for this position. So I went to a great rugby school. Our coach, Laurie Rimmer, played for England. He was actually a 7. The school has got a great program all the way through. And I developed a great love of the game, which has never left me. And fortunate enough, my heroes, the All Blacks, came to Lancashire 1963-64. And then again, 2-3 years later, and I was able to see Earl Curtin, Mackie Herawini, these great 10s, Chris Laidlaw at 9, and these great legends of the game up close and personable, because Jock Hobbs played for our local club, the Vale of Loon, where I also played. And Jock was able, he was only a kid, I think, 21, 22, 23, was the best thing we'd ever seen, obviously. And he was able to give us access to all Black culture, all Black beliefs, all Black training, all Black commitment, dedication. He was more skillful than all his pseudo number 10s as well. So I developed.
So KR, given that you transitioned from football, although I know you still have a love for football, and especially this small team currently that Tottenham's beaten twice this year.
Are you talking about the Premier League champions?
I'm talking about, yes, I am.
Manchester City.
Yeah, Manchester City. I am talking about that. But how did you then, to what extent did rugby help you in your business career? Because you've had a stellar business career as well. And I'm sure a lot of people who will watch this will know a bit about it. But just a quick recap on what you've done.
Yeah, I was fortunate. I got a start in London in the swinging 60s with Mary Quant, and from there went to Gillette, and then was lucky enough to get to Procter & Gamble, where I played rugby in Switzerland and coached Mons, the local side. Had great 7 years playing rugby in the first division in Switzerland with a lot of French guys, a lot of ex-rugby league players who had to play under assumed names in those days, although they did give it away when they kept playing the ball after the tackle. But we played some foreign teams in Czechoslovakia, some army teams and stuff. And I really took a lot from rugby. When we wrote the book, Peak Performance, Lessons from the World's Great Sporting Teams, both sport and business need leaders. They need fantastic teams. They need great commitment. They need true grit, both of them. And I think you see lots of learnings. I think rugby can learn from business. Business can learn from rugby. And I found the two to be terrific passions. I love leadership. I love creativity. I love marketing. I love teams. And I think when you look at the All Blacks in New Zealand Rugby, you see all those things, in different lights and different times. But the lessons you can learn on a rugby field set you in pretty good stead in business. Some of the things you learn in business help you a lot on a rugby field too.
So I think you talk a lot about New Zealand Rugby, and New Zealand Rugby was very fortunate to have you on the board at the same time as I was the chief executive, and we did some amazing things back in those days when the game had just turned professional, and one of the things that we did do together, you and I, was the Adidas deal, which is still on foot for the All Blacks as a principal sponsor. And I just wonder whether you recall those days at all when we first walked into the hotel room in San Francisco, and the Adidas guy said, "Well, we know we've only got a 1% chance of getting the All Blacks."
I remember those days very well. In fact, Gregor Paul's writing a book about that now, Moffo, and I know he has you on his list of interviews.
Yeah, I've spoken to him. Yeah.
Have you? Okay. Well, I know you'd like to have a world exclusive on those behind the scenes discussions that we had with Adidas then, but I already promised Gregor that, so we can't talk about that here.
Oh, right. Okay.
But you read the book when Gregor publishes in a year's time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Now, Gregor, I tell you, Gregor Paul is one of the most, how shall I describe him? He's possibly the best informed journalist that I've ever come across. He doesn't get all of his stuff off Twitter and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, he actually goes digging, and he gets a lot of information which is right on the knocker.
Yeah, I wrote for New Zealand Rugby World for 15 years. Bob Howitt was a terrific editor. Gregor was my editor in the last two or 3 years there, and he knows a lot about rugby, and for a Scot that's a very unusual kind of skill to have, right? Yeah. To know a lot about rugby, and he cares a lot about the game, and he writes beautifully, and he is erudite, astute, and good all-around guy.
And honest too, because he's never going to throw you under the bus unless you deserve it. Of
read
course.
The book first, Moff. I don't know. Let's see how we go.
Yeah. Oh no,
So I guess he's going to be your next subject, is he now?
Well, yes, he's
just butter him up. I think you're doing a good
yes, but I certainly will be doing it prior to the release of his book. But anything I can do to help him promote it in my own little way. But of all of the jobs that you had, because one that you haven't talked about yet, or because a couple, there's Lion Nathan, and then you did a massive job at Publicis was the owner of Saatchi and Saatchi. I mean, you made some major changes there and did very well.
I mean, in 1989, I came to New Zealand. Doug Myers and at Lion Breweries, Mike Smith had merged the company with Mace, which was Chris Mace, Peter Cooper, Jeff Ricketts, Robin Congrave, and they'd put together these two companies, a brewer, a soft drink company, and a retailer, because they had Woolworths and Decca and can makers, and they brought the two companies together, and they wanted someone with international experience to help run the business. So they came to me. I was running Pepsi Cola Canada at the time, and said, come to New Zealand, and they flew us down for a week to look around. My sister Tricia already lived here, loved the place. I loved the rugby and all that. And Doug and the Lion boys were very smart. They made sure I met a bunch of All Black heroes from my youth, most of whom worked in the pub business with Lion, and some very smart people like Earl Curtin and Chris Laidlaw in particular. And I loved everything about New Zealand. I mean, everything about New Zealand. I loved the lifestyle, the edginess, the business. And so I spent 8 years here. Doug Myers is one of the great heroes of American business. He had a guy on the board called Alan Gibbs, who's the most innovative, free-thinking, the guy who developed the Aqua car and stuff and has the great farm. And he was on our board, and we became great friends. And what I loved mostly about Lion was we could sponsor every sports team we wanted. So Lion Red sponsored the Kiwis, Steinlager. We stood by the All Blacks, and we were involved in most of the provincial teams, with Canterbury Draft, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my weekends were full of great rugby. I was still playing rugby when I came down. I was 39 years old and playing in the over 35s in Canada. I was pretty fit. And then I went to Eden Park, which was a dream for me, to watch New Zealand play. And the curtain raiser was a game between King's College and another top school. And I saw these 18-year-old centers of generally island origin tackling. I came up from a public school and tackled round the legs. That didn't seem to be the thing here. And I watched these 18-year-olds hurtle at each other and retired on the spot, promptly retired. But I loved the beer business. I loved New Zealanders. And then Doug had the vision to go out and conquer the world. So we met Alan Bond. Everybody needs to meet, as Kerry Packer said, an Alan Bond once in their life. And we were able, through some very smart financing from Mike Smith and his team, to buy the Castlemaine Forex Brewery, the Swan Brewery in the West End Brewery in South Australia, and Tui's. And with that came sponsorship of the Australian cricket team with Forex, the Australian rugby union teams, the New South Wales, Queensland State of Origin teams. So I moved across to Sydney for a year or so. One stage, I shared a home with David Campisi. Well, he shared my home for a year, and Nick Farr-Jones and all that generation of terrific 1991 players. I mean, that's what you had Campo and JK playing against each other, and great days of rugby. So we got very involved. And when the game went pro, Moffett, then of course we were heavily involved as Steinlager, sponsor of the All Blacks, Forex, sponsor of the Wallabies. And we had relationships with the players. And I guess both you and I were very fortunate to be in, what year was that, 95?
95. Yeah,
95.
95, the end of 95. Yeah.
We were right there on the inside of the Murdoch deals, the Sky deals, all the various Sanzar stuff. And we had the greatest asset of all, which was the greatest rugby nation, the greatest rugby culture, the greatest players, and the greatest history and the greatest future, the All Blacks and New Zealand Rugby, in our toolkit.
Yeah.
So we were able to, I don't know, they were unprecedented days of fun and enthusiasm. And I think we did a pretty good job in the Southern Hemisphere. I think the
Yeah.
Northern Hemisphere was slower on the uptake.
One of the highlights, and I'm sure you remember this very well, you just mentioned to me that Inga the winger has sadly passed away, I think aged about 53. But there's another guy that you got to know and I got to know very well. And we took him to San Francisco to meet Robin Williams.
And
I'm
one
sure
of the other guy up and dangled him over the roof
Yeah.
of 34 floors up. Do you remember that, Moffett?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Who
and he
was
was sitting on
holding
his.
who? And Robin was dressed in an all black jersey because Robin was a mad keen fanatic supporter of the All Blacks.
Yeah.
And it was his, he told me it right there, the greatest moment in my life. I've met Inga the winger.
Yeah. Or Jonah.
Jonah, sorry.
Yeah, Jonah. Jonah, it's okay, mate.
Still thinking with Inga the winger.
Yeah, no, I know, and it's hit you very hard.
I only heard the news a few hours ago, so I'm not in the best.
Oh, but let's face it, you're doing really well, mate. I mean, you know, but I've got a picture which I've actually sent around the internet a bit of Robin Williams sitting on Jonah's shoulders, and you know, the sad thing is they're both no longer here.
Yeah, and now you add Inga to that list, so it's not a great day, really.
No, it's not really. Well, back in those days we had a lot of fun, and as you said, you know, we actually did a lot. You know, the board backed our idea for a international sevens tournament because we didn't have a international sevens competition in New Zealand.
But we were both lucky. Rob Fisher, you know, took over as the chair of the game, and the union had been reformed right from 29 or whatever it was to 8. And we had an independence as I was, and Rob was very forward thinking and very progressive because on the Northern Hemisphere, the equivalents were very slow to change and very slow to the future. So I think, you know, when good teams come together, you got to have everybody playing in position. So I think Rob was pretty much an unsung hero, and at least I felt that way, that he really led the board through very challenging times in a very proactive way.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It made my job an awful lot easier. To achieve a lot of the things that I felt we could achieve, I look back at those times with a great deal of fondness, actually.
And then somehow you went to Wales. What on earth were you doing? You, Graham, Steve? I mean, what is the attraction? I've been there. Why?
Well, because you know, I have hanging up 2 blazers. You know, the Blazer Brigade. One is a New Zealand Rugby blazer, and the other is a Welsh blazer. And you know, in the history of rugby, New Zealand and Wales have been immense in terms of where they stood in the rugby world. Wales not so much, but they, you know, we got there. Basically, I put in place the New Zealand model. Went from 12 professional teams down to 4. Won the first Grand Slam 12 months later for 27 years, and rescheduled the debt and did all the things that we did and that was a challenge in Wales. The issue that Wales has that it's always at war with itself. You know, they've got this view that they have got a mortgage on parochialism. Well, they obviously haven't come here and seen what it's like when Auckland play Canterbury. You know, but it gets in the way. And it's got in the way since we put that in place because they haven't embraced the regional structure. And, you know, and there's what's happened is they haven't had people there to sort of sit back and say, well, it was okay then, but what about now? Is it still fit for purpose? Well, one's got to say no, not really. So what are they doing about reviewing it?
Well, they've certainly invested in New Zealand coaches, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of our coaches have gone over there and improved the game, I think, and have showed some pretty strong leadership and strong growth.
Yeah, no, they have, and so I'm very proud of the fact that I was the and I have to say, in both of those occasions, you played no small part because I used you as a reference. I know that was very difficult for you because you weren't working with very much when you were trying to provide me with a reference. But, I was very proud of the fact that I actually was the CEO of both of those rugby nations, and that may never happen again.
I think it's a tremendous thing. I think it's very amusing, I must say. Very amusing. And it probably served you right? You probably, after New Zealand, there you go to Wales.
Yeah. Well, perhaps even in my dotage, I might just give Daniel Levy a ring and see if he wants some help with Tottenham.
Well, he definitely needs it. Whether he wants it or not, I don't know.
No, neither do I. KR, it's been an absolute pleasure sitting down with you and reminiscing a little bit.
Are you going to try and get off this interview without talking about your new big project?
Well, once again, we're not able in the same way.
Yeah. But you can give us just the top line.
Yes, I can. I can. Well, we've been working together, yourself and myself, and Robbie Deans and
Brian
Ashton, especially, on looking at a new, shorter version of the game, and with fewer numbers of players and safer and simpler rules. And we're about ready to roll it out. But we're not just at the point yet where we can actually.
But can you share the name, or you want to unveil it properly? Okay. Well, I think it's a great idea, as you know.
Well, why we can talk about the name. It's 11's Rugby, and it's 11 aside, and it's played over 44 minutes in 4 quarters of 11 minutes, and it sits right in the middle of 7s and 15s.
It's fast, it's athletic, but you've still got to be tough.
Yeah,
and it's very innovative, and I think it to me is reminiscent of the way cricket went and saved itself, because we have to do something about concussions. We have to do something about the extreme physicality. We have to do something about getting young kids back into the game and about making mothers comfortable for our great game. And I think that your idea is brave, innovative, edgy. I think it's well grounded, because you once, to your shame, were a referee. So you actually understand the laws, which makes you almost unique in refereeing circles. And it's just good, Moff, that I think you're still, Paul Simon wrote a song, Moff, still crazy after all these years. It's good you are.
Yeah, but you can't go on a journey like that without other people around you, and people who understand the vision and who, more than that, understand how to get there. So yeah, we're just about ready to release it. There's a few things that we're just working on at the moment, and yeah, so you managed to coax out of me the world first. But anyway, KR, where are you at the moment?
In New Jersey. Trudy and I are here. We just came up to in New Jersey. We have a farm here that we share with our daughter and her husband and their 3 grandkids, and we came up to see Elton John's Good Farewell Yellow Brick Road concert at Madison Square Garden last night. So Elton John, 74 years old, his 44th gig at the Garden, his last tour. He can hardly walk now. He's just had his hips and his knees done surgery. But boy, he can play the piano, he can sing, and he connects with an audience. 17,000, sell out, everything, 2.5 hours, nonstop. Nobody sat down. My knees are about the same shape his are in now after 2.5 hours of that. So he's still standing, Moff, and it's good you are too.
Yeah, only just no. I mean, I just think Elton John is fantastic. One of my very favourite artists, and if he's on a farewell tour, I'm just wondering whether he's going to be coming down this part of the world.
Yeah, he's played 190 shows. I think he's reaching the end, and I think he's going to finish it in the US. I think, but yeah, I think so. Yeah, and he just said, he talked about it and said, I've had the best career you've ever seen, amazing visuals, blah, 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 blah. But it's time now, I want to spend time with my kids, and I want to spend time enjoying this great life. And thanks for everything you've done. He was magnificent. They were all there, your song, Candle in the Wind, The Bitch Is Back, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Crocodile Rock, Rocket Man.
Rocket Man. It's fantastic, and great that you were able to go and see him.
Well, you probably have a lot of clothes that would still look fit in the in the Elton John era with your glitter and all your glam from the 80s and the disco era. Dave.
Yeah, I could have worn my big glasses. Those big. I could have worn those, and I could have worn them on here. That would have given me some sort of
branding.
Branding.
Awareness.
Do you know anything about branding, Kaya?
I've spent a little bit of time on that, Moff, but you have to have material to work with.
So are you happy with the Moffcast brand?
I think it's I just hope any enthusiast and passionista for this great game of ours, and you are both those two things, go out there and chat to people about it. It's a passion for us. I mean, Fitzy told me, once when I was thinking of going into the game professionally with a big sports brand, he said, don't do it, man. Rugby's your passion. And if it becomes your job as well, you'll lose something. And it was really good advice.
Yeah.
So it's been the greatest passion, and it's the greatest passion of my life.
And he's another one on my list, of course, Fitzy.
Well, he was right there with us, shoulder to shoulder, doing the right thing during the whole pro area. And a lot of players owe a lot to JK and to Sean, because they really set the framework and brought together in that little black book the values of the All Blacks in a great way. And obviously they've been lived on through McCaw and through Reed and Carter and so on, and through the current crop. But JK and Fitzy were really right at the heart of that move to professionalism, and they really safeguarded the New Zealand players.
I know you've got to go to some very important stuff, but I just thought I'd quickly mention the Silver Lake deal, which I think both you and I were very critical of originally. And it's in its second iteration, it's a lot better, and I found myself supporting it. And I think what happened in the interim was that the Players Association sat down with Silver Lake and impressed on them what rugby means to New Zealand and to New Zealanders. And in actual fact, I was told that on one occasion they had 8 ex-All Black captains on a call with Silver Lake, and the whole deal changed because I think Silver Lake didn't fully understand what rugby means to New Zealand. They do now.
As Fitzy would say, full credit to all concerned.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see a lot more pressure on the All Blacks to perform, of course, now, but equally a lot of pressure on New Zealand rugby to perform.
Pressure is a privilege.
Yeah. And from now on, I'm going to walk towards it.
There you go. Take care.
Good on you, mate. Thank you very much, KR.
Ciao.
Ciao.